And good day, my listeners. We're at chapter 9, verse 23 of the book of II Chronicles. And all the kings of the earth sought the presence of Solomon to hear of his wisdom that God had put in his heart. Notes, the internal organ known as the heart is not what it's actually talking about here. If you check it out in the Strong's Concordance, it basically means the very center of something, much like the heart of a watermelon or the heart of a pineapple or something to that effect. It means to come from the center. It has nothing to do with an internal organ in this case. Verse 24. And they brought every man his present, vessels of silver and vessels of gold, and raiment, harness, and spices, horses, and mules, a rate year by year. Notes. Well, in fact, Israel at this time was the most powerful nation on the face of the earth. However, it was not because of a mighty armed force, but because of the grace of God, Solomon's wisdom and whatnot. Verse 25. And Solomon had 4,000 stalls for horses and chariots, and 12,000 horsemen, whom he bestowed in the chariot cities and with the king at Jerusalem. And he reigned over all the kings from the river even unto the land of the Philistines and to the border of Egypt. And the king made silver in Jerusalem as stones, and cedar trees made he as the sycamore trees that are now in the low plains in abundance. Verse 28. And they brought unto Solomon horses out of Egypt and out of all lands. Now the rest of the acts of Solomon, first and last, are they not written in the book of Nathan the prophet, and in the prophecy of Abijah the Shilonite, and in the visions of Iddo the seer against Jeroboam the son of Nebat? And Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over Israel for 40 years. And Solomon slept with his fathers, and he was buried in the city of David his father. And Rehoboam his son reigned in his stead. Notes. Now, you may notice the fact that God did not record the very great sins of Solomon in his latter years, and that is some indication that Solomon asked for his mercy and received forgiveness and grace. And if so, these sins would have been washed away and thereby unrecorded. This is about the only indication that we have that Solomon may have made things right with God before he died. It's just really a mystery that we will not know until we meet him later on, if we in fact meet him at all. Chapter 10. And Rehoboam went to Shechem, for to Shechem were all Israel come to make him king. Notes. Jerusalem was where the Lord had placed his name, and yet for political purposes and without consulting the Lord, Rehoboam would go to Shechem. So much of what is today called Christianity is operated upon the rudiments of political expediency and not according to the word of the Lord. And, well, we'll go ahead and read on, verse 2. And it came to pass when Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who was in Egypt, whither he had fled from the presence of Solomon the king, heard it, that Jeroboam returned out of Egypt. Notes. He heard that Solomon had died, and it is instructive to point out the dissatisfaction of the nation with the glorious reign of Solomon with all of its prosperity. In fact, much of Israel would elect Solomon's enemy as king, and this is a perfect picture of Revelation chapter 20, by the way. There it is foretold that although Christ will maintain an absolutely perfect and prosperous government over the entirety of the earth for 1,000 years, yet some of the world will be dissatisfied with that reign of glory and righteousness and will call back Satan from exile, as Israel called back Jeroboam, and for a short time will enthrone Satan as prince over at least a very small part of the earth. Now, God's attitude is basically going to be this. You guys don't want to follow me? Well, good. I'll just go ahead and turn the very devil loose, and you can have your own little tiny little kingdom for a little while. Oh, it's going to be fun for them. Verse 3. And they sent and called him. So Jeroboam and all Israel came and spoke to Rehoboam, saying, Your father made our yoke grievous. Now therefore ease thou somewhat the grievous servitude of your father and his heavy yoke that he has put upon us, and we will serve you. Note, now this is really just a flat-out lie. There was no scriptural evidence anywhere of a grievous servitude or a heavy yoke. Seems to me like Solomon did the right thing most of the time, even though in latter years he had trouble. Verse 5, And he said unto them, Come again unto me after 3 days, and the people departed. And King Rehoboam took counsel with the old men who had stood before Solomon, his father, while he yet lived, saying, What counsel give you me to return answer to this people? Notes. However, there is no evidence that it says that he took counsel with God, and there seemed to be little desire of the will of God. All of this just seems to be under the guise of political expediency. Verse 7, And they spoke unto him, saying, If you be kind to this people, and please them, and speak good words to them, they will be your servants forever. But he forsook the counsel which the old men gave him, and took counsel with the young men who were brought up with him, who stood before him. Notes. Now you can mark this right here. This would be the occasion for a lot of problems later on. Almost immediately, as a matter of fact. Rehoboam refused to listen to the old and wise counsel, and instead he listened to a bunch of young men who didn't have the first idea about anything. And it's going to cause a lot of problems. Verse 9, And he said unto them, What advice give you that we may return answer to this people which have spoken to me, saying, Ease somewhat the yoke that your father did put upon us? And the young men who were brought upon him, let me read that again. And the young men who were brought up with him spoke unto him, saying, Thus shall you answer the people who spoke unto you, saying, Your father made our yoke heavy, but make thou it somewhat lighter for us. Thus shall you say unto them, My little finger shall be thicker than my father's loins. For whereas my father put a heavy yoke upon you, I will put more to your yoke. My father chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. Notes. That's some pretty bad and pretty strong language right there. No doubt there was much more said than actually given here. They probably counseled him to conduct himself in a strong manner and whatnot. It was the worst advice, though, that he could have actually gotten. Just go ahead and just be a mean knucklehead, basically. And that's not going to work out. Verse 12. So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam on the 3rd day, as the king bade, saying, Come again to me on the 3rd day. And the king answered them roughly, and King Rehoboam forsook the counsel of the old men, and answered them after the advice of the young men, saying, My father made your yoke heavy, but I will add thereto. My father chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. So the king hearkened not unto the people, for the cause was of God, that the Lord might perform his word, which he spoke by the hand of Ahijah the Shilonite to Jeroboam the son of Nebat. Notes. You can find it in 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 29 through 39. Solomon, although he's dead, bears his full share of the responsibility of what Rehoboam was, and shortly came to show he was. The Lord didn't do this arbitrarily, but because of Judah's terrible idol worship, which now characterized the country and was instigated by Solomon. Okay, verse 16. Well, we must actually pick up at verse 16 of chapter 10 of II Chronicles. Thank you, and God bless. I'll see you later.